The Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is sponsored by Accunet Mortgage, an equal housing lender, NMLS ID 255368, and Accunet Realty Advisors, which is a separate company from but still affiliated with Accunet Mortgage.
Putting a roof over your head without the headache. Get answers to all of your home buying questions. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And our Sunday best to you. Good morning and welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. I'm Steve Kettler, along with Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors owner and president Brian Wickert and licensed millennial loan consultant David Wickert. As always, if you have a question or comment, a situation that you'd like maybe some perspective on, 414-799-1620 or throughout the Midwest on the Accunet Mortgage toll-free talk line. That number is 1-800-877-1620. Well, on the eve of the election, we had a jobs report that came out on Friday, and as always, you wonder, how did that affect mortgage rates?
Well, luckily, the mortgage and interest rate markets were anticipating practically exactly the number that came out. I think the forecast was about, what was it, David, 175?
Right. Yes.
And it came in at 165 for the non-farm payrolls. And then the unemployment rate dipped down to 4.9% from 5.0. So that's just basically an awesomely good number, really. I mean, I think, despite what the candidates might say, that was a very solid number, right at expectations, and feeds right into the Federal Reserve's narrative and planning for raising rates at their December 14th meeting coming up. So everybody, buckle your seatbelts. We're all anticipating, at least the odds were up to 80% on Friday.
Correct.
In terms of the Fed funds futures market, which is kind of like a betting parlor where people get to bet on what the Fed's going to do. It was up to 80. David just told me this morning it's now backed off to
66%. So 2/3 of the bettors think that they'll raise rates in December.
Hey,
no one is taking odds on if they'll raise it 0.5%. Everyone's just taking odds on the quarter.
All right. So the whole narrative here is the Federal Reserve has said we've been waiting for the economy to get strong enough in order to do our next rate increase. The last time they increased rates was last December, a full year ago it'll be, and they raised it 0.25%. So right now the prime rate's at 3.5. It's set to go to 3.75, and what that means for anybody listening who's got a home equity line of credit tied to prime, which is just about all of them, unless you have some sort of an introductory teaser rate that's locked in for a longer period of time, you're going to see your rate on your home equity line go up by about 0.25% in December. Odds are excellent of that happening. So we've been seeing a lot of people, because we've been advertising it, hey, now's a good time to go ahead and put your first mortgage together with your home equity line of credit.
Yes.
And lock it all in while fixed rates are still as low as they are. Any other nuggets from the jobs report, David?
I just always look at the participation rate, because that keeps flirting around that 62, 63%. So that's good. People still participating. And then I think it's the U6 number, which is people who are looking or half looking.
Partially. They're part-time and wish they were. No. The U6 includes people who are working part-time but wish they were working full-time.
Correct.
That's the difference.
Is at 9.5, so, not stellar, but...
That's the first time it's dipped under 10
Correct.
since, I believe, 2008. So that's another positive sign for the economy. Also, wage inflation.
Yes.
Remember, the Federal Reserve wants to see inflation be at closer to 2%. Well, wage inflation has been stagnant for a really long time, and that's now up to 1.4%, so moving in the right direction. Bottom line is it's all lining up so that we can expect that Fed rate increase in December. Now, one thing I was poking around this morning, I was looking at an election item, because I'm always impressed. We haven't talked about it lately, but the unemployment rate by level of education.
Yes.
Always reminds us how good it is to get a bachelor's degree, because I don't have the number up right in front of me right now, but it's really low. So
yes.
Like if it's 4.9 for the average across America, if you've got a bachelor's degree or higher, it's more like half of that. And what really struck me this morning was an article on NPR. I just thought this was interesting. Percentage of, and this happened to be because it was in the context of the election, percentage of white non-Hispanic residents 25 years old or older who have a bachelor's degree or higher. Steve, any guesses from you? What state in the union has the highest percentage of white non-Hispanic bachelor degree holders?
Wisconsin.
Oh, you homer.
Know your audience.
You homer. David, any?
I don't know. California.
Both pretty darn good guesses. California looks like it's around 40. The highest is Washington, D.C.
Oh,
Shocking.
okay.
Yeah, think of that. 90%.
Okay.
Maybe that's because they have so many lawyers there. Wisconsin seems to be, according to this, by the way, second best Colorado at 43.4%. And then Wisconsin is right next door to Pennsylvania at about 32%.
Okay.
So, so anyway. And then at the other end, West Virginia down about a little under 20%. So,
the drumbeat is on for good jobs report and.
Yeah, it's continuing. All right, when we come back, I've got an interesting story. I want to talk about the countdown to closing and how we had a near disaster earlier this week. Perfectly preventable, but it wasn't revealed to us until the last moment when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on WTMJ.
Home buying advice from the guys who know it best. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Well, as we close in on Election Day, some are wondering if we should shorten our election cycle in the future. Do you agree? Is that even a possibility? Get the whole story on Wisconsin's Afternoon News tomorrow afternoon at 3:51. Brian Wickert is with us. David Wickert is with us. It's the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on WTMJ, and you get down to the closing moments of a closing, and it almost gets derailed, huh?
Yeah, the final countdown. We should have that. Who is that? Nickelback?
Europe.
Oh, Europe. Okay.
The final countdown?
We should have had that.
Yes.
Doggone it. Another miss.
The 80s are the best. Okay.
Hey, before we do this segment, got a special shout-out to my mother, David's grandmother, Marge Wickert Showalter, who's convalescing at Tudor Oaks right now. Hi, Mom. Don't get to say that very often because she's usually at church. She's one of those faithful church ladies that goes to church instead of listening to her sons on Sunday morning. Hey, by the way, I also found the unemployment rate for people with bachelor's degrees or higher, 2.6 as of October. If you don't have a high school diploma, 7.3. If you do have a high school diploma, 5.5. This compares to the national average of 4.9. And then some college, 3.8. Okay, so here's the countdown. This is what happens as you get ready to buy your home. About 2 weeks before, depending on when your financing contingency, we give you a commitment letter that says, hey, we're really going to lend you the money. That's a very important bus stop on the way to owning your home. You then give that to the seller to say, hey, calm down. Everything's going to be fine. I got my financing lined up. Then about a week before closing, we send you the closing disclosure. This is the preliminary closing disclosure that finalizes all your figures, except we don't have all the information, but it gives you a darn fine guess of how much money you're going to need at closing. It's not a final number, though, until the lender gets a closing statement from the seller's title company. And that's where the seller puts together all of the final details, like the final property tax proration. Because remember, the seller's responsible for property taxes up until the day of closing. It also shows the real estate commissions, fees paid by the seller, like the owner's title policy, the state of Wisconsin transfer tax. It shows sewer, water, and garbage collection prorations, too. Those are little items, but stuff that we as a lender don't know until the last minute.
Correct.
And then it shows any credits for closing costs that the seller's providing to the buyer. Oftentimes, those come up front. You know, the buyer says, hey, I'll buy your house for $250,000, but you got to give me a $2,000 closing cost credit.
Sure.
Well, this is where this train almost came off the tracks. So we're 2 days, count them, 2 days before closing. And all of a sudden we get the seller statement, and there's a $1,000 seller credit on there that we didn't know about. So, of course, we dutifully ask, what's that about? The buyer's agent says, oh, well, you know, a month ago after the home inspection, we negotiated a $1,000 repair credit.
Ooh.
Ding, 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 ding. Lights, bells, whistles. You can't do that. So, ladies and gentlemen, especially, we have a lot of real estate professionals that listen to our show. Never, ever, ever put anything called a repair credit into an amendment unless you want us to make you fix it before closing. Okay, so that's fine. If you want to say $1,000, now this one, the buyer's agent happened to tell us, was because of a handrail. that they wanted installed because there was a stairway going from somewhere to somewhere, and then a missing storm window. So really minor stuff.
Yep.
But if you put that, and then they even told us they labeled it as safety issue, $100 credit for the storm window, safety issue, $900 credit for this handrail. I'm like, okay, there's only one way to fix this, and that's you got to redo that amendment before you send it to us, because if you send it to it like that, we're going to make you do it before closing.
Correct.
Luckily, the parties pulled it together and just redid the amendment because there's a really simple solution. Just say seller agrees to give the buyer a $1,000 credit for closing costs and prepaids. Mm-hmm. You always say closing costs and prepaids. David, what are prepaids?
Prepaids would be the accrued interest on the new loan and deposits into your escrow account.
There you go. Those are the prepaids, and then closing costs. Keep it simple. If you put in there
$1,000 because there's no handrail,
then we're in trouble, okay? Or even if you say seller credit because of, crummy wood rot. We had one of those this year,
yes.
Because of wood rot. No, leave out the because. Just give the seller credit. Okay. When we come back, I've got some numbers for southeastern Wisconsin. And, David, didn't you have an example of a bad amendment?
Good amendment.
Oh, no, good amendment.
A good story on the other side.
All right,
of that.
good story when we come back from this break.
And if you have a question or comment, you can join us at 414-799-1620 or throughout the Midwest on the Accunet Mortgage toll-free talk line at 1-800-877-1620.
Getting you into the home of your dreams. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
He was the Packers' first-round draft pick in 2013. How has linebacker Dante Jones impacted the teams during the 3 years in Green Bay? He discusses that and much more during Packers One-on-One with Greg Matzik. That'll be at noon today, sponsored by Pella Windows and Doors. So now we've got an example of a good amendment on a closing.
Yes, this is my favorite example. It's the opposite of what we almost had, trains coming off the tracks. The buyer's agent called me for a deal that we had, for a loan we had in process, and asked the question, David, should we do a reduction in the purchase price by $1,000, or should we do a $1,000 seller credit? And so the answer that I was able to give him, because this loan in particular got what is called a property inspection waiver, which means that we didn't need to get an appraisal even on this purchase, because the where this home is located here in the Milwaukee area is a strong market, and the automated underwriting system said, we believe you on the value of that property. And so this is twofold, because not only, we should really leave that purchase price in place, because we didn't want to fool with possibly losing that appraisal waiver. And then the other piece that we just wanted to emphasize was the savings to the buyer is much more pronounced when it's the seller credit as opposed to the reduction in purchase price.
David, could you give us a real-life example of that? How did the numbers actually work out in this case?
Okay, so if these people are making a 20% down payment, so if they reduce the purchase price by that $1,000, the payment on their mortgage is only going to change by $3.65.
What?
$3 because it's only $1,000 bucks. So the difference in the payment is $3.65.
Okay.
As opposed to the $1,000 seller credit comes back to you, if you're making a 20% down payment, that's $800 that you'll keep in your pocket.
There you go.
Which is more than $3.65 per month.
I just want to point something out. I'm not trying to show you up here, but it would be $1,000. Oh. If you get a $1,000 closing cost credit, it reduces your cash at the closing table by $1,000, and the bad news is it keeps your mortgage payment the same. And so contrast that with the, hey, we'll reduce the purchase price. You only will benefit by $200.
Correct.
And then in terms of the reduction in your cash needed at closing, and a measly $3.65. 102 out of 100 people surveyed, when given that choice, rightly decided to take the seller credit.
Yes.
But then they also, I would imagine, how did they word that? They just said, did they say because of a bad inspection report?
No, because the buyer's agent called up and consulted us, the mortgage guys. The verbiage was for prepaids and closing costs.
There you go, just the way it's supposed to be. So when in doubt, real estate professionals, please consult with your mortgage lender, especially when drafting amendments surrounding the home inspection.
Because I just want to take the other side of what you said, and we just touched on it in the last segment, which was if you want to force the sellers to fix something, you can include it in an amendment, and then we as mortgage guys will play bad cop.
We will be the heavy. And we will come in there and say, you got to fix that before closing.
Yes.
But just do that with your eyes wide open. And I think what real estate agents sometimes are trying to do in the amendment is they're trying to scare the seller into doing this. Hey, this is a safety issue, which means that they could blow up the deal under the home inspection contingency language if they have a right to, because that's called a defect. So what they're really trying to do is kind of puff their chest and say, hey, this is a defect, but we'll let you out of it if you give us this repair credit.
Correct.
Don't do that. Save the chest puffing for the telephone, and you just give them the amendment that says, hey, we won't throw that defect flag, right, which is going to blow up the deal if you give us the seller credit. Here's this very simple amendment that says, give us the seller credit, and everything will be fine. All right, after the news break. Oh, sorry about that. Boy, I just hit the old microphone. When we come back from the news break, we are going to talk about the home sale numbers for southeastern Wisconsin. Were they better? Were they worse than last year? Where were the fastest selling markets in southeastern Wisconsin when we come back?
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on WTMJ.
Don't break the bank to get into a house. Back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And David Wickert, and for the record, I know it's Daytone Jones, and I misspoke, and I apologize. Mistakes happen. Gotta love live radio. So, you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show here on 620 WTMJ.
Yeah, and October home sales were up again compared to a year ago. So let's see, where's my number here? We're talking about single-family detached homes in the 5-county metropolitan Milwaukee area, and we had 1,421 homes sell. Thank you. In the month of October. That's 44 more than a year ago, 3.2%. By the way, the number of homes selling in October is a little bit more than what sells in March, just by comparison. You know, we got 3 months to go in the year. In March, we had 1,284 home sales. So a nice number, 1,421. The other good news, is that the number of listings in October, 1,645. So about 200 more people listed their homes than sold. What does that mean for inventory, David? Is it going up or down?
It's going up.
Paying attention there. Good job. By the way, every time I look at this, I go, oh, September, that's 7. And October is 8, the 8th month, Oct.
Yes.
Why is it called the 8th month of the year? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Because the Roman Emperor
Octavius,
August, was added, and so was July.
Okay.
So July was the first one that was added, and that bumped the other ones back.
Mortgages and more.
There you go.
To the
Right.
Accunet Mortgage.
November is for 9, and December is for 10. All right, so mortgages and more. All right, so what about the speed at which homes are selling? In the month of October, the average home in single-family detached home, and I'm just waiting for my Excel spreadsheet here to come back up. It's a little frozen. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I think what is interesting is more people have been listing their homes here at the end of the year as if there is a summer buying season. But I think a lot of folks who have sold this summer are inspiring their neighbors to list their homes as well, if only because with the strong numbers that you're talking about, a lot of sellers are getting multiple offers. And just strong prices that, maybe are at the start of the year, it was thin inventory. And I think there's been this gush of listings here at the second half of the year.
Yeah, maybe if not a gush, at least a good surge, I would say. And also that means if you are a renter getting into the market right now, this is not a bad time to buy because it's not the heat of the season. All right, in terms of speed, I got my computer back working now. The average number of months in which it took to get an offer was 2.7. 2.7 months. So it's not like all of them are flying off the shelf, That's not.
I
the
remain
rule.
skeptical.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So that means I list my house on on October 1st, and I get an offer on like December 20th.
No, October 1st. 2.7 would be. Oh yeah, October. Yeah, middle of December. You're right. My bad.
All right.
Okay, but that's the average. The hottest selling markets go like this. In West Bend, in number 10 spot, only 1.9 months, as was the case also in Menominee Falls and Waukesha. In the seventh fastest selling municipality was Lisbon. And by the way, these are only municipalities that had 10 or more sales in October. Muskego, my hometown. Go Warriors, 1.6 months to get the accepted offer. Greendale at 1.4. They've been in the top 10 quite a few times. Brown Deer at 1.4. Germantown at 1.4. Tied for the fastest-selling municipalities in the five-county Milwaukee area in October were Greenfield at just 1.1. 33 days is all it took. And New Berlin, 1.1 months as well. On the other end of the spectrum, these are going to be, the slowest selling this month, and there were only 13 sales, so maybe there was a real dog in the bunch, but Waterford, down in Walworth County, no, that can't be. Waterford, that has to be the Racine County portion of Waterford, 8.4 months. Oof. Fredonia, 5.3. Mequon, 5. So, that's not quite double the average, but getting there. Delafield, 4.4, and Grafton, 4.2. That has those Grafton, Delafield, Mequon, at least in particular to me, are slower because they are higher-priced homes, and the higher-priced homes are languishing in terms of supply and demand. If you are in the $500,000 to $750,000 price range, you got a 9-month supply of homes to get through. So remember, you got to price right. When we come back, speaking of New Berlin, the hottest selling municipality in the five-county area, I've got a story about an appraisal in New Berlin that didn't turn out as well as we had hoped when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Don't just find a house. Find your home. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett has been in office for more than a decade, but who is he outside of city government? Does he have plans for higher office? Hear an exclusive interview with Mayor Barrett during WTMJ's Conversations coming up at 11:07 this morning. You're in the midst of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show here on 620 WTMJ with David Wickert and Brian Wickert.
All right, so we were just talking about how New Berlin is the fastest selling municipality, at least for October. And so we happen to have a refinance going on there for a really nice house, like 3,900 square feet. And that doesn't include the beautifully finished lower level with the exposed basement.
Okay.
In-ground pool, lots of garages, on some acres. Okay, so the city assessment on this property is $750, which is kind of exactly the value that we needed in order to help this client put together what we're talking about at the beginning of the show. Hey, let's put your variable rate home equity line together with your first mortgage.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, she's been suffering with the first mortgage rate at 5.25%. All right, for quite a while.
Okay.
And so, hey, let's put this together with the variable rate. So she's got two motivations for doing this. Well, because I knew it was going to be difficult, I said, well, let's not spend your $500 to get the full appraisal. Let's kind of do this desk valuation review that we have available where a licensed appraiser sits at their desk, looks at all the information that's available publicly from the assessor's office and such, and says, here are the comparable sales I would use and the adjustments I would make to them, and here's my estimate. Well, it comes in at $700. Bummer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a very smart person who owns this house, and so she asked, well, why is it so different than the assessment? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, probably because the city assessment, information is old. And she did some research and came back and said, well, they just assessed us in 2015.
Yep.
But, David, I sent you on a mission before the show started to say, what does that mean? When, if New Berlin reassessed everybody in 2015, what was their data set?
The year prior. And I went into the multiple listing service in that price range, and there were only 4 homes in all of New Berlin who sold in that 650 to 800 range, of which 3 of the 4 were at 750 and above.
Okay.
So that was
but they sold in 2014.
Correct.
Because remember, assessments happen in January of every year. So when somebody says, hey, we did a reassessment in 2015, they mean January.
Correct.
That's way too old for us because we can only use comps that are 12 months old. So we have a different data set.
Correct.
All right. So then she said, well, hey, but my neighbor just had their house appraised for a refinance, and it came in above the assessed value. I'm like, okay, we'll find out about that. $550. Okay, that's an apple and a zucchini.
Yeah.
Right? That's not the same type of house. It's smaller, etc. Then, again, just talking through this with the person, we would have to have her bring a lot of money, like over $50,000 to closing in order to finish up this refinance with this lower value, assuming we can get the appraisal, completed, the full appraisal,
yep,
and passes muster. And she has the money, but she's kind of hemming and hawing, like, well, maybe I should just wait, pay it down some more, and, wait another year and see what happens. But I explained to her the problem is you have a very rare home.
Yes.
In fact, on this appraisal that I'm looking at right now on my screen, only 2 of the comps are from New Berlin. The other ones are from Waukesha and Big Bend. Why? Because they just don't have any.
Not a lot of $700,000, $800,000 houses.
Correct. And so I pointed out to her, you're going to continue to have this problem no matter what year you go after this refinance.
Correct. So
why don't we, pay it down and, get you a 3-something rate, and take care of the big chunk of money.
Correct.
No, my goal was to put the first mortgage and the second mortgage together. Well, okay. I said to her, that's like a grand slam home run. I'm offering you a triple with 3 RBIs.
Right.
I can lower the rate
yes,
a lot on your first mortgage. I can like absorb $50,000 of the home equity balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got to come with a lot of money, but you know what? After the fact, we could probably get you a new home equity line and replenish your savings if you wanted to do that. So we'll let you know how that turns out. When we come back, David, let's do a little rate roundup.
Yes.
And then you get to pick the last topic.
Excellent. I'm excited.
All
Let
right.
me come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Getting you through the home buying process. Welcome back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And we're to the rate roundup segment of the show.
All right, and cue the Aaron Copeland. No, okay, so on a $200,000 loan with 25% equity and all the other right stuff, including escrowing for taxes and a FICO qualifying score of 740. Mm-hmm. At the end of business on Friday, Accunet Mortgage could deliver a 30-year fix at 3.5%. It's an APR of 3.53. That would be about $1,500 in closing costs, 0.2 of a point to get down to that 3.5. If you prefer, and this is just the way that I would pick my mortgage, I would do the 3.625% zero closing costs.
Did you say zero closing costs?
That's zero.
That's where we pay all the closing costs, which
all
are
of them.
Normally $1,160, which is low, by the way, compared to your typical lender in southeastern Wisconsin is going to be more like $1,600 or $1,700.
Whacking you with that processing fee, or
underwriting
fee, paper shuffling fee,
commitment fee.
Exactly. Or if you prefer, hey, I want to pay my mortgage back in a decade and a half, Accunet could deliver 2.99% with, wait for it, zero closing costs.
Zero.
Again.
Yeah, so that's remarkably low, despite this steady drumbeat of economic data coming in. We had the good jobs report this last Friday. The week before that, we had a good gross domestic product report, which is the overall economy. Oh, we didn't mention that the 2 previous months, David, of jobs reports were also revised upward to the tune of about 90,000 more jobs,
Hey-o.
adding more fuel to the fire for the probable rate increase. What else you got?
I was just going to note that, and we talk about this when we're consulting with folks on the phone, the difference in your payment between the lowest rate and lowest cost is $14 a month, which would take you darn near 7 years to make back that cost. It's not that people don't believe that they're going to be in their house that long. It's just, wouldn't you rather keep that money for yourself and rather than spend it on cost? That's
right.
Just
but hey, there are other people that are like, nope,
I'm going to die in this house.
Yeah, I want to pay more in closing costs and really lock in that low rate over the full 30 years of the loan. Correct. You will save money.
All right, you've been on a real stretch here talking about the Home Ready program for first-time home buyers.
Yeah, so I'm all excited, and we're really on the lookout and looking for ways to help people always save money. And we are geared up and ready to offer a Fannie Mae program called Home Ready. It's a 30-year fixed-rate loan. And the big criteria is that, and by the way, it's good on refinances up to 95% of the property value. And if you're buying a home, the minimum down payment's just 3%. 3%, of course, can come from a gift. No problem there. And by the way, it's not restricted to first-time home buyers. The restriction is that in about 2/3 of the counties in America, you can only make up to 100% of the average median income for that census tract.
Okay.
There are a ton of census tracts, however, in Milwaukee County and a few in Waukesha, very few in Waukesha County, just as an example. But like downtown Racine is in there, downtown Kenosha as well, that are designated as special census tracts where there's no income limit. Okay. The other thing that really, really helps with the Home Ready program, if you're a first-time home buyer, like we had somebody this last week looking at buying a condominium and met the income requirements. Well, normally Fannie Mae assesses a 3/4 of a point penalty for being a condo if you have less than 25% down. That penalty is waived on the Home Ready program. If you are making less than a 20% down payment, which this person was looking at doing 5% down, and Fannie Mae, as anybody who's a mortgage lender knows, or if you've gotten a loan recently, they ding you. They make your rate worse based on your credit score. Well, under the Home Ready program, there are no credit score negative adjustments as long as your credit score is 680 or above.
Nice.
It saved this woman a ton of money.
Yes.
You were making the point that when it comes to staying under that 100% of area median income, which, think about it, that should be half of the people, right?
Yes. Median.
Right, the median
yes.
means that half the people are above and half are below. This is really perfect for single home buyers or refinancers because...
Well, behind married people, single women are the biggest purchasers of homes.
And that was the case for this particular woman as well.
Okay.
And, of course, our other favorite home buyer program is WHEDA, Wisconsin Housing Economic Development Authority, which also allows 3% down, but they don't do condos. So that wasn't...
And neither does FHA.
Yet.
Okay.
They're working on it. So just another arrow in the quiver. Not every lender in the country or in southeastern Wisconsin or in Wisconsin offers WHEDA. Not every lender offers the Home Ready program. That's kind of the cool thing about Accunet Mortgage is we really try to have as many arrows in the quiver as we can. And, being that it's November, people don't think of that normally as home buying season, but it's a great time to buy. Why? There are less competitors out there.
And more homes for the numbers you said.
For sale. So if you are a first-time buyer especially, please, please, please think about buying now. Hey, maybe you can ask Grandma or Grandpa or your parents for a little gift.
It's that time of year.
To help with the down payment. It's Thanksgiving, around the turkey table, say, hey, we're thinking about buying a house.
Grandma, I'd really like to buy a house this year.
Yeah. How's about you shell over $5,000 and help us out?
That's
but really, the grandparents love to help their grandchildren, so do parents.
Of course.
That's very, very common. We know how to do that and make it easy. So click on that blue button at Accunet.com and get started with your rock-solid, guaranteed pre-approval to buy between now and the end of the year. Hey, next week we'll have a new president.
Oh boy,
that'll be interesting.
I'm
going to be glued to something. I don't know, CNN, CNBC, something.
All Tuesday night.
All Tuesday night. All right, Steve, that's all we've got for today's show. We'll be back. No, we are off next week because it's a noon Packer game, so we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll see where things sit then. You've been listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ. Colleen Boland joins us next from the WTMJ 24-hour newsroom.
The preceding was a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show are solely that of the hosts or guests of Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors, and not WTMJ Radio or Scripps Media Incorporated.